Now and then that bottle's my kryptonite. Brings a man still down to his...
My name is Marty Martin. Welcome to the No Bullshit Show. And today I'm honored to have, I'm going to call him Sergeant Major Guy Gravino. He was a sergeant major, and me being from enlisted special forces, I cannot call him by any other name except Sergeant Major. All right? So when I refer you today, sir, it'll be Sergeant Major all the way. And for those out there who are civilians that don't understand, you see a lot of stuff in the military and the movies and everything else. But if you see a guy and he has a lot of stripes on his arm and you hear the other sergeants referring to him as Sergeant Major, you need to listen to that guy. Because that guy's been through it. He's been there, done that, bought the T-shirt, wore the T-shirt, washed the T-shirt, ripped the T-shirt up, and started over again. All right? So I'm honored to have Sergeant Major Guy Gravino with us many, many years. And in the United States Army, Special Forces, and tons of other experience moving on from there into the civilian world. But today we're going to start off as young soldiers, and we're going to talk about a couple of stories here and there, and then see how they evolved over the years. Because we're clearly not young pups anymore. I'm not going to refer to us as senior citizens. We're just well-seasoned fine wines. But Sergeant Major, welcome to have you.
Well, thanks for the invite. Thanks for being here. Thanks for letting me be here. And I do have my AARP card. So, but it's good to be here.
And so we'll start from, oftentimes you hear that, why did you join the Army? I got a crazy story how I joined the Army, but I won't bring it out just yet. My mother and father are dead, thank God, because otherwise, but I may be in trouble because I'll look down and they'll say, okay, that was me. But how did you're here today? You've been this life of adventure and experience, and we'll go into some of it a little bit later. But what made you join the Army?
It was probably necessity. I was 19. Did not have my higher education. I had a family already, and it was 1974, 75. And it was hard to get a job. So I decided that I was going to go into the Army, get that education, and then move out. Went into intelligence. I scored high enough to get in there, and I was in a classroom one day, and in walked a couple of paratroopers and said, who wants to be a paratrooper? And instinctively, the hand went up. So that was the start. From there, went to the 82nd Airborne. Ended up in recon school within a month. White thread, and then got out of the Army in 78. Went back in 80. I missed it, and then started pursuing Special Forces.
All right, and I assume that you. Enjoyed the Special Forces world and it's probably still an integral part of that community. And just going by our age group, that means you got to dabble in several interesting places along the way, such as Iraq, Afghanistan, etc. And so obviously we can laugh and share some stories about that. It's funny, when you talk about two soldiers talking, normally we can talk about overseas and some things that funny happen. I don't know about you. Some of the funniest, craziest things that ever happened to me was when we were in training, and you have some dummy do something stupid, and then you look around and you're trying to figure out, or do I cover his ass when the platoon sergeant comes, or do we make it up, or do we just throw him under the bus?
Right.
I mean, most of the times our instinct is to cover his ass and try to bullshit our way out of it. But a lot of times, these guys, our platoon sergeants, have been around the block more than once.
Right.
And then they'll read right through it.
Right. A lot of times they will. I had some funny experience, too, on live fire ranges, where your medic is running, and actually discharge a round right in front of your feet, and you're going, what are you doing? Dive exercises that we were doing where things were going wrong, but there was a lot of fun in the training. There was a lot of excitement. I thought for me, it was an adrenaline rush on a lot of it. I enjoyed it. When I first joined the Army, I did not plan on making it a career. But once I got through that first enlistment, it was like, you know what, I'm not that bad at this. I think I'll continue with that. But family issues were like, you know, I had that break. And then it was like, you know, I gotta get my feet back in it.
You know, for a moment, you said family issues, and we'll just take a quick kind of focus on that. A lot of people don't understand. We see the movies, you see that. We don't understand the toll it takes on families. Mm-hmm. And there's a couple of groups where people realize this is high divorce rates. Yeah. And that's among the special ops community. Yeah. And of course, and I can speak from many years in the CIA side of the house. Unfortunately, we have our share of family problems.
Yeah, there was a saying that you're not a Green Beret until you have at least one divorce, a Rolex, and a blue sapphire ring. Yeah. So you had to get that one divorce to make sure that you were really an SF guy.
It's interesting because, you know, a lot of people aren't aware of that high attrition among the marriages. Right. And so when you see the advertisements these days on TV about, you know, one of the toughest jobs is an Army wife or a Navy wife, you know, there's a real truth to that. Yep. Because when I don't know about you, when you know you have your go bag or your own alert, and there was not a whole lot of warning time, and you got to go.
You got to go.
And then back in the day, you didn't have the ease of cell phone and satellite comms. I mean, I don't know about you. In Afghanistan and Iraq, all the young boys could get on their computer in downtime and talk to their families. Early on, you were gone.
Well, in 76, 77, we had problems with Uganda. It was one of them. And when Idi Amin took those 246 Americans, I was in DRB, Division Readiness Brigade. I spent 3 years on that. So for about maybe 6 months, it was like you can't leave the phone. My parents came down to visit. It was over Easter, and they were going to church. And I said, "Look, I'm gonna make some breakfast when you guys get back. I'll have breakfast ready." My father came to me and said, "What are you, turning to some kind of heathen boy?" And I was like, "No, I'm just going to stay here by the phone and cook breakfast." I couldn't tell him anything.
Yeah, back then, remember we had we did have cell phones. There were line phones, and then they came up with the pagers.
Right.
Let's not talk about pagers in Hezbollah. That's a whole different story. Right. But came up with pagers, and you could always tell who was kind of like on the alert or who the echelon was by if they had a pager. Right. The normal guys, you don't have pagers.
Yeah. Long hair, big muscles, and a pager.
Yeah. Right. Note to self.
Right.
They're the last guy you really want to get in a fight with at the bar, probably.
Right.
Because he's a little bit older. He's going to be quiet and laugh at you and tell you pick somebody else.
Dismiss.
Yeah. Please don't do this to yourself.
Right.
But it's interesting. It's funny you said I want to be a paratrooper. You can tell by my very sophisticated accent. I'm from the great state of Louisiana. My father was a well-known Baptist minister, and I mean throughout the state of Louisiana, TV, radio back in the day. And I was a bit of a calm, Sawyer Huckleberry Finn personality. So our little run-ins were things of, let's just say, could have made a couple of movies, and I'd have lost every time. But the bottom line is, we were at loggerheads, and I was going to do this, and I was going to do that, and he wanted to be on preacher and his radio and all of this. And something happened, and I can go into more detail. But my younger brothers asked my father one day when they were playing golf. He goes, "Whatever happened to Marty? Why did he run away? We keep hearing these war stories." So my father looked at my brothers and said, your brother was ahead of his time in civil rights movement. They're like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "He defiled my baptism pool with 2 of those twins from Booker T High School," which required my absence from the great state of Louisiana. Mm-hmm. And I ran to the Army recruiter, and I walked in, I took the test. We didn't have computers then. And you took the test, a young sergeant came out and said, "Man, you smoked this thing. What do you want to do?" I said, "I want to dive out of airplanes behind the enemy lines." He goes, "What?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, you can qualify for it." I said, "I want to dive out of airplane behind the enemy lines." He goes, "But I got to be gone in 2 days." You need to understand, 48 hours. This is serious. So the young sergeant went back, his recruiting, the senior officer, and he told him, we got a live guy out there. We got a live one. We got a live one. He wants to dive out of the airplane behind enemy lines. But he said he got to be gone in 48 hours. And he goes, well, this is Louisiana. He said, this happens all the time in Louisiana. These boys get themselves in trouble. He said, let me see his packet. And I'll never forget, the guy looked and read the packet, and he went, is he out there? And yeah, he goes, let me help you, son. You see this name he wrote? That is not the correct name he's known by, his father. His father is Reverend W.D. Stepmartin, Reverend W.D. See how he wrote this William Durwood Martin? That's who this is. His name's Marty. And he went, yeah. He goes, okay, bring him in. He goes, I walked in and went, yes, sir. I was trying to be military. I didn't have a clue. Yes, sir. He went, I have one question for you, son. I appreciate your motivation. Does your father know you're in this office? I said, well, I'm 18. He doesn't need to know. I can be. He said, yeah, he doesn't need to know for you. For me and this young man, we'll be buried dead in a swamp in the great state of Louisiana if you so much as join this man's army and without his permission. So I said, well, I'm going to join the Marine Corps. He went, hold on, calm down. And he said, he thought about it. He goes, how bad is it? I said, bad. I said, look. He goes, yeah, weren't you on the radio? I said, yeah, I was on the radio. I was preaching, and then I found boobs, and it's a problem. And and he was like, he goes, I can understand your daddy's a tough, tough man. And the young sergeant's looking over like, man, I had a great recruit. Now I'm going to lose him. Right. And he goes, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to call, are you willing to drive to Texas? I said, sure, I'm willing to drive to Texas. I'm going to call Texas. I'm going to call my buddy over there. I'm going to send you over there. I'm going to work your contract. But the deal is you can never, ever tell anyone you walked in this office.
And we're going to give you $55 a month.
Yeah, that's it. So I said, done. Then he goes, do my contract. He goes, you heard of the 82nd Airborne? They're one of the finest airborne divisions. I said, and they're located at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. What'd you say? He said, North Carolina. I said, I can't go to North Carolina. That's the South. He got reach everywhere in the South. He goes, okay. He said, what about Kentucky? You got this 101st. I said, they don't jump out of airplanes. I read about that. They jump out of helicopters. And he went, all right. And he was like, son, he goes, the only other place that I can send you right now, and I can't promise you, there's this Ranger company in Alaska. I went, Alaska? Now we're getting somewhere. He said, but it's not normal. He said, you got to go through the training, and you can go to jump school, and then you're going to report to Alaska. And this Ranger company, it used to be the Oscar Rangers when they had these detached. And he goes, and if they don't like you, you can go, they can send you to anywhere in Alaska. I'm like, I ain't worried about that.
I'm a likable fella.
I said, I'm a likable fella. I'll smoke all this stuff. I'll be just fine. Fast forward. I did all that, went to Alaska, served 2 years, froze my butt off. And 2 years in Alaska, and then I went to Special Forces from there. But it's funny how the Army will take, and look, the Army, and I will say this, it is one of the biggest integrators from your boot camp training to your skill set training. It takes fellows from all walks of America. Takes away your name, takes away Guy, takes away Marty, gives you a number. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's it. And you get through it, and you learn to like each other, hate each other, whatever, but you go through it together.
When I got on a team, I had an intel background, as I said. The intelligence guy, the Fox, said, are you here for my job? I said, nope, just want to fit on the team. Whatever the slot is, I'll take it. And which everybody was relaxing then. Of course, they would have told me, when I got back from the training, they told me, they came in and said, tell everybody, Guy, get up there and tell everybody what they're teaching down there now. So I got up and I started giving them the spiel. And the team sergeant says, you done? I said, yeah. He goes, now get over there and shut up. We'll tell you how it's going to be. That's how, boom. You're on top of the world. You're right back down to the bottom again. And then you work your way back up.
Exactly. Every unit, I mean, you go from one phase to another. It's funny. You just reminded me. I was at AIT. Now, for the audience, AIT is after you go through boot camp and all that, you'll go to your skill set. And mine was, of course, being the genius that I am, I picked infantry. So I was at AIT infantry at Fort Benning, Georgia. No, Fort Benning, Georgia. So there was this drill sergeant, and there were two guys, and they were terror, and they were Rangers. They were in Vietnam, I guess, and they were Rangers. They were tearing it up, and I liked them. And so I was doing pretty good at all this. And one guy's name, I'll never forget, Staff Sergeant Benner, and he talked. He was a little guy. He wasn't a big guy. And he make tall people come to his height. Mm-hmm. And he talked like this, and God bless him, I hope he's alive still. And he was just a badass. But you could tell he was funny, and he was good. So years later, fast forward, I go to Alaska, do all the airborne training, go to Alaska. I report, go through Special Forces. I report to my team. Guess who? My Lieutenant Benner. He went to OCS, and he was my team leader. He was my number two, the XO. But it's so funny how small that community was. Right. But even when I walked in, he went, "I know you." But he called you Gator. And I'm like, I guess y'all made an impression, sir. And he's like, I hope you calm down. I said, not really.
When I went out there, the senior TAC for the first phase was a guy named SFC Sharp. And his line was, man, this isn't Burger King. You're not going to get it your way here. And all through the training, through the first phase. Well, at the end, I organized the group where at the end, when we were getting ready to get out of the first phase, where we sang, hold the pickles, hold the lettuce, special orders, don't upset us. And he kind of got a little chuckle out of that. But the humor again. Yeah. It's the humor.
You got it. I mean, look, there's a guy named Craig Maxim. God bless him. He was one of the senior guys over at I'll call it the unit. People call it everything else, CAG. Delta, whatever, Delta. I will call it Delta. He was a senior operator over there for years. He was running phase one, Craig Maxim, and he was another small guy. He did not like tall people.
I remember that name,
Craig Maxim, and he gave me the hardest time during phase one. But at the same time, it was humor because I mean, being the Huckleberry Finn, Sam Sawyer that I am, we reported to. When you report to phase one and pre-phase, they'll tell you no beret, no, everybody puts on the little caps, right? And the Rangers, of course, came with their black berets. And me, I had a purple beret, the Ranger unit came with an Alaska thing on it. And I was making fun of them. I was like, these are lower 48. They got nothing on us. And, of course, Maxim thought it was funny. Right. And so he said, you guys get your right head gear, go, and made us run around the compound, right? And, of course, he said, all Rangers got to run around the compound. So they're running around the compound. And he goes, and where is T1, where's Martin? He goes, you make fun of them, you're running too. So I'm running out with them, making fun of them the whole time, right? And the young Rangers guys, who became best friends, of course. Sure. I'm like, where'd you come from? I said, I'm not from battalion. I'm from a company in Alaska. We're the ones who dive into Russia and die. Our life expectancy 24 hours. And they're like, well, that's not really bright.
Why would you do that?
I said, guess what? We're the only ones. Right. We're the only ones. We dive out of airplanes on the polar ice cap. We freeze. But no, those are sometimes. Speaking of war stories in Alaska, we're on a field. Alaska, it's a beautiful place. If you love nature, you'll see anything there. It can come out of nowhere. And, of course, the Army, they have these field exercises. You're out in your buddy, you're doing a mission, you're doing a recon, and next thing you know, out from the bushes pop the call of the wild, wolves, and you got nothing. You got blanks. You got some grenade simulators. But you have some time. Mother Nature, we could quickly learn looking after your buddy. Because in Alaska, you fall in and get something wet, hypothermia, up in the mountains. Yeah. It's no joke.
Or even if you start sweating.
And in the summer, you got mosquitoes. You think it's a helicopter. You're getting on a mosquito, and it's a helicopter.
As big as dogs.
They come out of, and I'm from Louisiana. So I'm thinking, mosquitoes flying out of ice? These are badass mosquitoes. So the last thing, obviously, I'm having flashbacks now, thinking.
Well, you were talking about wolves in Minnesota. We were up there on a training exercise and we're shutting down. We packed everything up, going to stay in the admin in the field. But I just got up underneath the tree, rolled out my sleeping bag, and was underneath the tree, head at the tree, and I hear a howl, and it was close. And I sat up in that bag, and I said, "That was a wolf, and it's close." And they're like, "There have been no reports of a human being killed by a wolf." I said, "That's because they eat them." So I reached in for the grenade simulator. I tied a wire around it on a tree right above me, put my bayonet in the tree right here. But then I realized I couldn't get out of my sleeping bag to get that. So I ran a wire, took the pin out, ran a wire down in with a string, and I can imagine the jaws of a wolf coming down on my face and going and pulling it and giving me time to get out. It never happened, of course. But that's the humor, that scare and stuff where you're thinking that could happen and trying to mitigate that risk with what you had.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's funny when you get military guys together, where, it's obviously among the Rangers, Special Forces, Marine, there's always a funny story, or you remember, actually you've forgotten a story for years. Right. And then you remember, like, wait a minute, right. Remember that time? What was that dude's name? Right. And then, but it's just a camaraderie and a brotherhood that is hard to beat. We were talking earlier before the show, and we were talking about, obviously we go toward current events and military and all of that. But your experience, you brought out some points about, we're talking about Russia, we talk about Ukraine and Africa. No one cares about Africa. And the thing is, and you can bring it out, your experience in Africa, people are unaware, but America, you go to Africa, they're begging you Americans to come because the Chinese are there and their shit don't work. They go there, they're going after the minerals, they're going after the gold, they're bringing their own people to do the work, and the country doesn't get it. But you probably see a lot more.
They're stripping the land. When I've been in Africa to about 12 different countries in Africa, the first time I saw them was in Congo. And we were in a little village, and we were doing a survey, checking some things, and stepped out through an alley, and a Chinese guy stepped out about maybe 3 or 4 houses up. He looked at me, I looked at him, and was like, "What the heck's he doing here?" And he had the same look in his eye. What is he doing here? That was back in 2007. I saw Chinese engineers in Tanzania building bridges. When we were in Dar es Salaam going up to a place called Masada to train their special forces who were going into Sudan. And we were working on SOF with them and stuff. And then, I've seen them several times. But the reason the United States wasn't there at the time was it wasn't profitable. Now they're looking at natural resources that we need to sustain our way of life and to stay in the 21st century and ahead of things. And now it's getting a little bit more critical.
Yeah, well, you got the Chinese pushing Africa, you got them pushing South Latin America. Every time we don't focus and there's a lack of American leadership in the world, there are those who want to take advantage of that. And it's not the Russians, it's the Chinese. The Chinese are the ones that are coming. We can talk about it today, Sergeant Major. You and I, we don't speak Chinese, and thank goodness we'll never have to learn it. We hope. But I guarantee you, if we don't we need to focus. And I like the way President Trump is kind of dressed. He's the first one who really called out the Chinese.
There's been recent reports that senior Chinese officials have gone to Europe and told them, we want this war with Russia to continue.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason for that is so they can concentrate on Taiwan. And right now, there are people. Our people are probably there. I can't say that I saw them there, but they're probably there, and they're probably training them. The U.S. Navy is still going through that strait, and they'll continue to go through there. But the Chinese are definitely have their eyes on Taiwan.
And that's the the conundrum in that we're in is after Iraq, which we all know, there's a lot of controversy about why we went there anyway. No controversy about why we went to Afghanistan. But the way we left Afghanistan under Biden, there's no one trying to itch for boots on the ground, the American public. And President Trump, true to his word, has been saying he doesn't want any war. But he's not afraid to pull a trigger when it's necessary. But I'm sure the Chinese, may want to test our resolve on that. Mm-hmm. But I've read, as you just commented, that some of our folks are already over there, special operators working with the Taiwanese to help train them up. Mm-hmm. But I believe you're right. The Chinese love to see our focus on Ukraine, Africa, and elsewhere. And I'm sure they're not too happy about their surrogates, the Iranians, taking a bit of a bloody nose as of late. But the Chinese, and again, for our audience to know that, the Chinese they're the problem.
I believe part of that bloody nose with Iran was a message to China that we do have these capabilities. We can't give up. We don't want to give up Taiwan. The chips that we're getting out of there are too valuable to our society, and we're not going to give them up. We're trying to ramp up our chip producing in the United States now, but it's going to take time. And the reason that didn't happen for years and years is because it's a dirty process. And now, the EPA guys are going to have to kind of cool it out until we can, for that national security aspect.
Well, I believe there's been a couple of announcements in that area. So obviously somebody's focused on it in that manner. It's interesting. I was just thinking about, we're talking about China and that focus. I do believe that's going to be the next, the big one that we're going to have to address. They're the only other power that can address geopolitical, military, finance, across the board. I do think it's interesting with Trump taking over. Remember the big trip out to Saudi Arabia and the UAE, mm-hmm. in the Middle East? I think one of his messages were quietly, that wasn't really announced, because if you remember, Saudi Arabia was dabbling with Chinese arms, maybe, mm-hmm. and UAE was dabbling, bringing over some, Chinese, cyber and all of their expertise. I think one of the messages, again, that's an absence of vacuum of U.S. leadership. But I think one of Trump's messages, and you could see the immediate shift in the Gulf, our friends. Mm-hmm. I think Trump was like, okay, pick a side. I get it. I understand. You had to do what you got to do. You got to play in the middle. If you're not depending on the U.S., Biden, Obama, whatever. But now I'm back. So pick a side. And I guess they picked a side. You can tell.
And then watch this.
Yeah. What? Pick a side and watch. The boogeyman Iranians are not coming.
No, I don't think so.
But I think I agree with you. There was a message in that operation for the world to see.
I don't think that. I don't think the Iranian thing's based on what's been happening over the last several years. I think that we still have a problem with maybe them here, and not knowing. But you sit there and you start looking at what's happened. You look at the political moves being made, the posturing, and you're wondering, okay, are they not doing this? Are they not knuckling down on them because of the results of a conflict, or is it or could it be maybe something more devastating, like something is already here that we don't know about, or they do but haven't been able to find it? And I'm not, and I don't know that. I'm just saying it. But they have more information than we do. But if all those things that we've been taught over the years start kicking in, you start speculating. And why isn't that happening? Now things are starting to happen. And I don't know, maybe for the better, I think.
Yeah, I mean, there's pressure, there's focus. Again, obviously, we had millions of people come across the border. That's a sleeper cell dream.
Yeah.
Okay, sleeper cell dream. And I used to tell people, remember the tri-state down in South America. You had this tri-state area for the audience. It was chaos. You had Hezbollah there. You had others. You had Iranians there. And I said, so you can't blame a young Border Patrol person or if a guy speaks perfect Spanish, has a Spanish passport,
right.
A passport, he just comes up and he's Iranian or Hezbollah. most of our border folks are not trained to say, "Wait a minute, your name's Antonio Vasquez,
Right.
but you're speaking perfect Spanish. You look Iranian."
Right.
And so for years we were worried about that. The intel community was worried about it. I do believe I think the atmosphere of targeting our ICE folks,
Yeah.
I think that's going to create an environment where we have to be careful.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I look forward. I think we got to wrap it up now. But I look forward to Sergeant Major us having a chat again. Tell us some more war stories.
I enjoyed it.
And we'd love to have you back.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.